everyone. I am, for those who don't know me, I actually know a lot of these faces already. So I've seen many of you guys before and also bantered with several of you in various different formats. So my name is Simon Thompson. I look after product marketing at Meraki, and I've been with the company for nigh on 6 years now, so about 6 months before the acquisition by Cisco, and it's been quite a journey, and that's why I use this title, because it really does feel like this. It's been a real journey of innovation all the way through, and really starting to reshape the way that the industry, and I think Cisco particularly, thinks about how it delivers IT. And what I want to try to convey to you in the next sort of 30, 40 minutes or so, along with my colleague George, who will arrive imminently, I'm confident of this, is an update on some of the newest innovations that we've been bringing to the table. I do want to try and keep the session interactive, and this is why. Switch my clicker on would be a good start. So I looked up this because I was aware that this is the slot that's right after lunch. And I did a presentation yesterday afternoon, and I think it was full of scintillating content, but I still saw eyes kind of doing that thing, you know, that thing, that sort of defocusing thing and that sort of eyelids going down thing. So I just thought about, you know, how am I going to keep this crowd energized and entertained? I think that, frankly, you guys have such a level of interactivity that you're used to, and I'm certainly counting on for the next hour. We kind of get through this together. Think of this like a team effort. Okay, so the last thing there said sort of put a match underneath things. So that's what I'm doing. I want to remind everybody what Meraki is about. I know we have people joining us who will not be so familiar with Meraki as part of Cisco. We have, I think, a very interesting take on how to manage infrastructure and how to do that at large scale. But we've also brought along with us some changes and some fresh ways of thinking, which have taken some time, I think, to really start to hit home. But I know that it's happening now because the nature of the conversations I'm having has been evolving over these past 6 years. And it's still, like today, I'm having totally different conversations on our booth compared to how it was when we first started out. So, you know, just daring to mention anything like this at a Cisco Live 5 years ago could have led to a very brief conversation and a quick exit out of the door. But I think now there's a very broad acceptance that this thing has served its purpose, but it is the thing which has held us back for quite some time, because so much training, so much experience, and so much knowledge is required to be able to really help to build on top of that. And we should be doing that. We should be building on top of the things that used to be difficult and making them easier over time. So technologies bring us new challenges as we go, and we want to try to simplify, which is our North Star. I'm sure you've heard many times from the Meraki team, but we're not at all shy of using that word. We're very proud of it. It is our North Star, and it stays that way because we believe it drives us towards helping the IT industry move ahead with the new challenges coming down the road. And you all know you're at the front line of this stuff, so you know that things are not standing still. They never do. Also, boxes. We take a fresh approach to how we architect things. We have a cloud-managed solution. We put the stuff that used to be, the brains that used to be in boxes like wireless controllers or PBXs or network video recorders. We take that intelligence and we move that to where we think it works better for a scaled, distributed world, and that is in the cloud. And I think we have really nailed that approach. The cloud experience that we have now means that we can support up to 25,000 client devices. So that's what I mean by client devices in this case is things like APs or switches or security appliances, 25,000 in a single logical instance. So that kind of scale and the speed that the Meraki interface responds at is testament to the work that our engineers have done building a lot of very clever bespoke software over the last nearly 12 years that we've been in business now. I mentioned simplicity. You know, needless complexity is a thing which is still rife in the IT industry. A lot of the conversations I've been having on the booth in the last couple of days have been around how people are looking to scale and looking not necessarily to eliminate complexity altogether. It still has a place. It is still needed in a lot of environments where custom solutions are required, where you want to try to really address and you have the experience to be able to address these bigger challenges, these more complex challenges. So we're not saying we do away with it altogether, which is why I've merely said needless complexity. There's a lot of that. We don't need that in this industry anymore. We can just get rid of that. So let's move on. I think many of you will have seen this before, but just to reiterate, this is still our mission statement. Todd is still very much in love with this, our general manager. And it's really trying to convey what we think is the North Star that I just talked about. So our engineers are continually thinking not just about how to innovate with new features and technology, but how to do so thoughtfully and in a way that simply doesn't add clutter to our interface. So easy to do that. We get a lot of large customers come talk to us wanting to have feature X, Y, or Z implemented. We have to think really carefully about whether that is going to help our cause or undermine our cause over time. Because we want to keep this interface simple for that sort of 80-20 rule where we support a large proportion of this industry with the features that they need. So let's recap on the history of Meraki a little bit before I get into some of the new stuff. Cloud managed networking is where we kicked this all off. 2006, it was all about the Wi-Fi. And those people who were in the industry at that time, I think that's probably most of you, will remember that this was at the time an extremely controversial approach to take. No controller required, managed through the cloud, and at the time, sort of a very new approach. And we were being attacked by a lot of our competitors at that time for this architecture, which was clearly really did set the cat among the pigeons. But what we discovered was that the model had some real clear benefits. I just set those out, things around scalability, the easy management through a graphical user interface from anywhere, from any device that has a browser on it. Having got that architecture understood and really starting to work on that, we understood we could apply that to other areas of IT. And this is significant for our conversation today, because obviously this group is largely interested in networking, but there's a broader world out there of IT, and we are certainly not, we don't consider ourselves restricted to the world of networking alone. So just getting this fundamental local area network capability into place was obviously very important as a starting point. But then the next phase was where we moved on to other types of solutions that really started to stretch the model a little bit. So things like Systems Manager, SM. That is our endpoint management tool, remains that to this day. It is, in fact, Cisco's only completely wholly owned endpoint management solution. And it really does now, after 6 years in operation, encapsulate the features that customers are asking for when they are managing mobile devices of various different types, iOS devices, Mac OS, Google Cloud as well, supported through this tool for the configuration and monitoring of devices at that level rather than through the network. So this is for the managed devices typically. But again, it leveraged the cloud and it did not rely on any other hardware. So customers are able to purchase just purely this use case if that was all they wanted to achieve. So that gets us penetration into new areas and new markets. Then we have the phone. That's an interesting one. Anybody been associated with the Meraki phone at all? Okay, so I have proudly put that up on the slide here because I think this is an extremely bold move by Meraki. Voice is complex, very complex, especially when you take that international. I'm getting an approval for that comment from the back of the room. And so what we wanted to do was think about a different model, not just applying our cloud-managed approach, but also thinking differently about the experience for the IT administrator trying to deal with the vast complexity that's involved with delivering a voice solution. Seems so easy when you pick up the phone, but there's so much that goes on behind it. I used to work for Nortel and Avaya, so I'm pretty familiar with that whole world as well. And what we did with that was we sorted out a cloud solution not just for the management of the phone, thereby eliminating the concept of a PBX or a call server, but also we worked together with a service provider to help us overcome the challenge of getting access to the PSTN and the whole management of that SIP trunk as we go out to the PSTN world. And what that enabled us to do for customers who chose to go down this path was they now had an option to manage their voice estate through the Meraki dashboard, this single pane of glass, this true single login, and have that same sort of Meraki experience, but even when it came down to ordering lines. So I don't know if any of you actually experienced this firsthand, but you had a very different world where you suddenly need to order sort of 10, 100 different lines. You can go straight through the Meraki interface, select the numbers that you want in a strip, and just download those, and they are ready to use immediately. So none of this concept of having to wait for weeks in many cases for a service provider to come up with the goods. So we changed the model not just for the Meraki management side of it, but also incorporating a service provider to get us access to the PSTN. So just to give you a very clear understanding of where this product sits right now, because I'm sure many of you will be aware that it's not currently on our website. What we discovered really as we went through this exercise was that working with a service provider that gave us the ability to do this streamlined experience for the end user worked beautifully well for here in the United States and in the markets where we were able to negotiate those. Of course, when you go global, things get super complex. You've got different setups for a SIP in every different country, different regulations that impact that. So we have to be mindful of those. And that really does make things a lot more complex at the back end. So what we've decided to do is to kind of go back a little bit to the drawing board around the back end architecture, because we want to continue to deliver that Meraki experience, but through a more sort of scalable solution that we can truly take properly internationally. So watch this space for that particular line.
For the record, I think that integration with the PSTN provider was probably one of the more clunky aspects of the phone solution. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that gets readdressed in the, what would you call it, next launch of the product, if you will.
Right, and I don't need to tell you that, of course, there are many different ways that you can architect that yourself to get that out. It's not even super hard to do, but does it meet the sort of Meraki standard of simplicity? And that's the thing we need to really figure out and nail down.
I'm also incredibly hesitant to move to a solution that provides me one provider. Which is what I found in the Meraki solution is wherever you were at, there was one provider. And anytime there's not competition, even if it's good now, it's not likely going to be good down the road from a pricing perspective or from whatever. So like that's a big limitation from my perspective about how I would be hesitant to jump into a solution like this if I only have one choice.
If you only have one choice.
Yep.
Okay, that's good to hear. I think if we think beyond that, I'm interested in your broad feedback actually, which is, do we think that this is actually a good thing for us to try and crack? Do we think that this fits the Meraki model more broadly? Personally, I do think so. I've had people come and talk to me this morning who were very interested in just a turnkey voice solution. And that's really what this thing is targeted at. It's trying to solve that specific use case, I think, rather than displacing, obviously, the very large corporate UC solutions that we're used to.
I think there's a place for it. I absolutely think there's a place for it. And to simplify phone deployments is a great thing.
Yeah.
But I just think there's so many nuances to deploying voice. Like these phones don't work with each other unless you have a SIP line, which there's not any other voice deployment where that's true. I can take any other voice deployment, put it out there, and I can do extension-to-extension calling without any type of outside service.
Right.
So now for this to work, I have to pay for a SIP line back and forth. So there's lots of nuances that say, can you make that model work as compared to everything else?
Yep.
If you can, it's great.
Yeah. I agree, and I do think it's worth us pursuing. So I'm very optimistic that and the engineering team is also very bullish about getting this nailed. So
well, it would be interesting to see what the WebEx, the rebranding to WebEx on the Cisco side of the house it does to the product moving forward, because it's sort of the one Cisco phone that sits out in an island that doesn't really do much like anything else. And I understand that's the intention, but there's so much more that can be done from a Teams integration, from a WebEx integration, from all those various and sundry other products. It seems like there's just a piece missing.
Right. And I do think, Teams is a really nice product. It's got a way to go still, but I think it's a great start as far as delivering an attractive enough solution for business. And so getting voice into that will definitely be a huge benefit, or getting it really, really integrated beautifully and seamlessly.
Also, just next time, can we get actual features with the phone outside of essentially it came out with just a single line and that's all it did, and it was like, oh, let's add this, let's add this. Maybe I understand the MVP model.
You do understand the MVP model, that's good.
But at the same time, I don't even think you hit MVP the first time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think the thing with MVP obviously is that it's a bar that other people can interpret in different ways. So I definitely hear what you're saying, for sure. I think the feature set was really starting to get into a fairly comfortable place, but we still need to get that back-end architecture right. So moving on from there, George has now joined us in the room, and he'll be up shortly talking about his cameras. the man in the hat, very easy to recognize. I have used this slide, or this is the first model of camera that we launched in August of 2016, and it has actually been the fastest growing, amazingly, this has been the fastest growing Meraki product in our history, which is amazing because we have actually broken this. What this says to me is that we have broken out of the silo of networking only. So when we talk about cloud managed IT, really that's what we mean by that. We're actually starting to evolve outside of those silos and having conversations with a different group of people. So a lot of people don't deal with security cameras. I don't know whether you guys do as part of your roles, anybody? It's not super common, but it's growing. And why shouldn't it? It's another IP device. Why do we need to have another team looking after this? So that is definitely a very interesting new development. And George will tell us some really exciting stuff about what happens in the back end of that to make it a very compelling solution. And then that brings us to what I call Chapter 3, or the intelligent cloud, where we're starting to really leverage tools, software and hardware, in a way that helps us to build on these basic functions. So I've used the camera again here, and this time I'm using the model that we launched in February of this year, an updated model with more power built into it for doing other things. In this case, we're moving beyond it being simply a security camera for recording footage of incidents that we see in the field, but also now thinking about analytics and being able to understand the world around us a little bit using these cameras. So we have now heat mapping built in, we have analytics built in for people counting, and intelligence built into the camera to help us get better and better at that over time. So you hear so many times, I'm sure, in these sessions, and I'm sure you will for the rest of the week, AI, machine learning. We're going to talk to you a little bit later on, George will, about how we're truly implementing that here in this device. And then a couple of tools that I really want to make sure you have a good grasp on that we've introduced in February this year, Wireless Health and Meraki Insight. So I will get onto those, and I'm conscious of time ticking fast, so I'm going to need to get moving. This I put up because this is really our, if you like, the journey that we're on takes us in this direction, which is, here are all the things that can be IP managed. Here are all the things that we can potentially get a real benefit by centralizing the management of. We actually renamed our IT team in Meraki to Digital Workplace, and we've created a booth here at the show to help us explain this to people coming by. And that's because we want to get beyond thinking just about the pure, narrow IT function, but moving on to the facility side of things, moving on to the other aspects of the buildings that we actually put our infrastructure into, and how can we improve the experience of managing all that infrastructure as technology gets more and more immersive in our lives. Who's seen one of these slides? You might remember this from the keynote. Cisco Live Vegas last year, actually, where it first arrived as the network dot intuitive dot. So this was really Cisco really putting a stake in the ground for its journey to providing a complete holistic experience that goes beyond just the troubleshooting side of things, but really looks at a closed loop setup where we can provide intent into the network, and it can then provide us through understanding and context whether we're actually achieving what we want to in terms of policy, in terms of network experience. So we are part of this journey at Meraki. And as you read across from the left, you'll see many things, those of you who know Meraki already, where we are a tick every single time. There's a lot of stuff here which really, I think, talks very well about the way that Meraki has approached the IT challenges that you all are facing out there. It is a journey, and it continues. So we're just kind of getting to this place now where we're starting to incorporate some real intelligence into the network, and that's real intelligence built into the hardware as well as some of the software solutions that I'm about to show you quickly, which really take us in the direction of being able to deliver on this promise of a more automated, constantly learning network that provides continual great experience. So I want to make it really clear, and I've inserted these slides deliberately. They are from the general Cisco pack, around how we are very much thinking the same way. It's simply that we're delivering it in slightly different ways. We want the ultimate experience, the ultimate goal to be the same as any other technology company should. So the network's increasingly helping us. I'm sure many of you will know these tools already. This is what we've already done. Ways in which the network goes beyond simply providing connectivity to the end user, but starts to help you as administrators, but also the businesses that you take care of as well, that you support. So obviously things like RF analytics are a big part of that. So too are location analytics. They go beyond the stuff that we may directly be interested in ourselves, but can provide significant value to organizations trying to understand physical environments a little bit better. So we deliver this on the wireless already, as I'm sure you know very well, with our built-in security radio on our access points, which lets you really understand the level of the throughput of people, how frequently they come back, and how long they stay. So understanding those environments. We've had plenty of customers telling us how this, frankly, gives them enough value that it covers their investment in Meraki altogether. That's how valuable this data can be for customers. And we have APIs that let you access that data as well. But then I think this one's really interesting, anomaly detection. Think back to the previous slide where we had this journey of trying to provide a more automated, intent-based experience. Anomaly detection is part of that journey, very much so. And I really like this kind of plain English stuff that we're starting to see appear sprinkled through Meraki that our engineers are working in here. We want to get past people having to rely on event logs, having to scroll through loads and loads of data to find what they really need. So we want to give them that data in a more consumable fashion. And I'm picturing all kinds of ways we can use this. There are some obvious ones that we really need to do, things like notifications on a smartphone app that say something like this. And for your average IT guy out there who maybe doesn't spend as much time deep in the weeds as some of this audience would do, this is very valuable to be able to just access this and be able to go and solve the problem quickly. So February this year, we introduced wireless health. Has anybody seen this and used it yet? Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, I'm really interested to hear what you think of it. Obviously, it's a first cut, and we've got a way to go. This is what the feedback cycle is all about. But I think this is a really good starting point. What we're focused on here is end user experience. It's not good enough just to keep the network up and operational. We need to make sure the end users are getting the experience that their businesses require of them. And wireless health is an essential way of helping us on that journey because it helps break down some of the challenges that we run into when we try to connect to a wireless network. Your end user isn't going to understand this. They can't get on the Wi-Fi. They're going to raise a ticket that says just that. I can't get on the Wi-Fi. And then the IT team's spinning cycles trying to figure out what is the actual true problem here. Is it DHCP? Is it DNS? Am I failing at my auth level? Is my auth server simply timing out because it's busy, or I've got network congestion? What is it? Network health is designed to help us really get to that. Once those users are connected, then they get into the next level of data, which is around the experience that they're likely to be having. We're focusing predominantly at the start around particularly latency-sensitive applications, voice and video, I'm thinking about here, and making sure we're delivering well on that. We're measuring latency between APs and clients and the overall throughput experience so that we can deliver a really good experience for Wi-Fi-based users. We also recently introduced RF profiles. So very common with Meraki in particular to have very large distributed organizations, a lot of common setups throughout those organizations. Think about retailers, for example. And so the idea of being able to group together RF settings for your access points, power levels, channel settings, and so on. And also adding in RxSOP functionality as well if you want to go that way. And you have the expertise to be able to do that. I know some of you will. We have big fat warnings on the dashboard about venturing down this path because things can get messy. But I think it's a really nice way to tune things if you are trying to hit large deployments that have a very similar physical layout.
Just a passing comment on this. I know that the agility of the dashboard is what it's all about. I get it. The radio settings RF profiles is one of those features that when it was turned on, it did nothing. In several instances, we configured it, and the APs didn't do a thing.
Right.
And so I would be, aside from just making a wish on a beta feature, I wish this would work.
Right, I mean, it's reasonable.
Yeah, it'd be nice to sort of see those things fleshed out a little more before they even hit, public-facing beta.
I agree. I mean, I can't disagree with that. So good news is that the man who is largely responsible for coding this entire thing is at the show this week. So we should chat. But my guess is there will be something behind this, some kind of use case challenge that we hit. I'd like to think this is not universal. I've heard that from one other person, so I know it's a thing. So I apologize. We've had that experience. Right, so with last few moments we've been thinking about wireless experience. I now also want to think about what happens when we start to move our services from our data centers increasingly to cloud services. Again, I'm talking to a crowd here that is right at the leading edge of all this stuff. But there's a lot of way to go still. It's a fast growing trend. People taking IT services that used to sit on real physical servers in data centers on site and then moving them off to AWS, they're moving them off to Azure. And so we need to think about that market. It is a big market with a lot of still open potential to explore. So we want to make sure we're supporting that well. One of the ways in which we're doing that is through a solution we call VMX. This is a way to extend your Meraki-based VPNs, your auto VPNs, into these cloud scenarios. So here is the AWS equivalent of that. You simply spin up a virtual machine that can then be managed through the Meraki dashboard, but actually physically sits in your VPC up there in the cloud. So really nice way to just take that experience another step further and closer to the servers that you're managing to try and keep things as seamless as possible for the end users. Next up, Meraki Insight. And this may be new to some of you. Unless you've logged into the dashboard in the last few days, you may not have seen this particular view. And I had to update my slides in a bit of a hurry because we literally, I think it was Thursday or Friday, we pushed this out for everybody. An update to the UI for Meraki Insight. Has anybody tried this yet? Meraki Insight? Okay, so use case I think is really interesting. All the troubleshooting you can think of for Meraki up to this point has been based around the local area network, taking care of the stuff I've showed you just a moment ago, wireless health, making sure that the local area network is well catered for with all of the many tools that have been part of the Meraki dashboard for a decade now. We haven't been able to provide a lot of helpful information around what happens if you are moving your applications off-site to remote locations, to the cloud. And we want to address that. So Meraki Insight is taking us in that direction. It's helping us to understand some of the detail behind the wide area network experience and also the application server performance at the other end, with the intent to help IT administrators speed up their experience. Again, they don't troll through pages of event logs. They know where the problem lies. It's a WAN problem I need to get to. I'm going to get onto my ISP to get that resolved. Or maybe I need to do a little bit of engineering myself. Speed the IT team up, make the end users happier, everybody wins. So here's an example of what we get if we dive to the next level of depth on this tool. Now you can set different thresholds for this. So on the last slide you saw we had ticks and crosses to very simply convey the fact that our LAN is healthy, our WAN is not healthy. But when we need to get into the next level of detail, it's all here. Once you've got your threshold set correctly, so you're not getting lots of useless information, then you start to get some really powerful stuff like this. We can see clearly here. This is fun because you have to set up a demo environment to do this, because I tried doing this on our Corp network, and unsurprisingly, the IT team wants to keep everything working beautifully, so the demo is incredibly dull. Demo environment lets me do this. So here you can see this line, it's kind of small there. It says available good put. So that's the application level throughput for a particular flow. And we're seeing here a sudden drop off, a pretty bad one. It happens to correspond, because we have this nice vertical bar to help us, with this sudden increase in loss on the wide area network. So this is real simple stuff. This is not clever at all, but the value of it is significant. It means my IT team can very quickly identify precisely where the problem lies. They can do the same thing with the application server by looking at response times from the requests we send those servers. So we're starting to move in that particular direction as well. Not to the same depth as some other solutions from Cisco. You probably know about AppD, and maybe you're even hearing from them later on. They will certainly take you into a much more detailed analysis of that area. What we want to do always with Meraki is provide the essentials that we think will help our customers the most effectively. So end-to-end network intelligence and assurance, and that's something we're really proud of. We think we've got a really good story to tell here, right the way from the endpoint that we can manage, right through to the application server that they may be accessing on a remote cloud solution somewhere, through one or many of these tools.
As you add features into the dashboard, how do you keep the dashboard consistent as you lump more and more things on? We're already seeing a breakdown, especially like, for example, let's take Insights, for example. Yep. Where Insights has its own separate licensing portal. Mm-hmm. And every other Meraki product has one unified licensing portal.
Yep.
It feels like there's more and more breakdown as you add more and more things into the dashboard, which is seems to go against one of your core tenets of keeping it simple and straightforward and unified.
Yeah, I hear that. And there's understandably a lot of debate that happens any time any decision like this was made. In the case of Insight, we've actually positioned it as a separate product. And the reason we've done that and not as a feature of the product that it initially runs on is that it has the potential to be run on other platforms as well. So we want to separate that out.
You license APs and switches and MX appliances, which are completely different products, not features on top of each other, in a unified licensing portal today.
Right.
Why do you have yet another licensing portal just for Insight?
It's really about Insight being able to be applied to potentially other hardware. So right now, it's very easy to conflate it with the MX because that's the only product it runs with right now. You need an MX to act as the collector for all of that data. And you're relying on the cloud and a lot of storage behind that to support the ability to track over time. But what we're doing now that we've got the product out there, is listening to you guys and the broader industry around whether there's enough appetite there to put this onto a dedicated appliance of some description, so that it can potentially be used by customers who are using maybe an ASA in their setup instead of Meraki at the head end. So that's the thinking behind it. Again, it breaks down into a lot of complexity for us to try and resolve at the back end. Trust me, our instincts is to try and make this as easy as we possibly can. But thank you. I was going to do a demo. I'm actually going to skip the demo, I think, unless we get time towards the end. I think I'd rather do it that way around because I want to give George some time as well. But it really was to take you just through the wireless health and Insight tools in a little bit more depth. Happy to do that any other time. I also wanted to just highlight for you the fact that here at the show, we've got a big presence in the DevNet zone because we want to enable people to start building on top of the Meraki solution, starting to think of it as a platform for them to build custom solutions, integrating with their own existing software rather than relying on having to switch over to the Meraki dashboard every single time. And this is how we're actually getting started with DNA Center. It's one of the early implementations that's taking really good use of our APIs to help us with configuration and monitoring of Meraki devices. And we're putting this model in front of our partners and customers where they can choose whether they buy existing pre-packaged solutions that we've worked on with our partners, but also to potentially go off and start learning some code and doing it themselves. I found this app last week. It's called Grasshopper. I'm not advocating for this app. There are probably many of them. But it's great fun. I don't know if anybody's tried it, but it's literally just, you've got 5 minutes of downtime rather than scrolling through Instagram again. You have the opportunity here to go and learn, like a little, incrementally add a little bit and get in this direction. I've put this slide up here because most people who don't code already think they can't code and think they just don't, it's not their world at all. It's a whole other category of human being. I don't think this is the case. I think we all have the ability to get to a level of depth where we can start to access some of this and build more custom solutions that help us with that big, exciting journey. And I'm going to use a horrible cliche here. Am I allowed to even say digital transformation to this audience? No. OK, I won't say it then. I won't say it. Brief word on security, and then I'm over to George. I went to RSA. I noticed everybody was wearing black or very dark colors. It seems to be a security thing. It's some sort of unwritten code about RSA. So I thought I'd do my one security slide in a dark color in honor of that. It seems to be the appropriate way to go. VPN filter is pretty serious, and it's impacting a lot of devices around the world. This is simply to make the point once again that I think you all know, but I want to reiterate for the broader audience, that we integrate some of the best Cisco security technologies on the Meraki MX. So we have already source fire intrusion detection and prevention. We have advanced malware protection, threat grid. It's all built in. And one of the great benefits we have here is working together with the Talos organization. So VPN filter, day of announce, Talos finds this, writes a signature, ships it out, and we have it deployed to all Meraki customers on that day. No firmware updates required in order to do this. And that is a pretty significant level of confidence that people can have in their technology if they know that something like this, which is impacting right around the world, is not going to be impacting Meraki customers.
How many of you actually tried a Meraki camera? Awesome. How many of you tried the new one? Nice try. Nice try. So I wanted to start with give you like a little bit of the sort of philosophy that me and the camera team built up when we were trying to actually look at how we go and build something that's really pretty different. And so one of those ideas is this idea of focusing on solving problems and not on building features. And this sounds incredibly obvious, and it sounds like everyone in the product world and the tech industry should be doing this. But time and time again, I often see that this is not the case, and features sort of drive the product development, and you give it to the customer and they sort of question what you've been doing for the last 12 months. And one of the ways I really like to sort of explain this to customers when I'm talking about why we do some things, like we do analytics, and why we don't do other things, which is allow you to store video on a server of your own choice for as long as you want, is to sort of put this into context. So have any of you bought a TV in the last 5 years? Okay. Does your TV do 3D in any way?
I don't know.
Have you ever used the 3D on your TV?
No.
No.
That one time right after I got it.
The one time? Okay. So this, you sort of represent the majority of people I've come across in meetings who I asked this question to, where it was this big thing and everyone was going to buy a TV for 3D, and this is what manufacturers are using to sell new TVs, and there's that feature that was the differentiator. You go out this TV for $1,000 with 3D, and then one without. You feel like you're doing a good thing and getting better value if you buy the one with 3D. But it sort of really missed the point. It wasn't something that fundamentally sort of was easy to use or something you needed at home. And so it sort of died off as a thing that people are interested in, and we're all moving on to other things. And I sort of see great similarities in the physical security world. There are lots of specific features for some customers, but not things that solve the fundamental cost and complexity of operating infrastructure of camera systems. And so why don't we go solve that? And I like to see parallels to the telephony industry. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with like digital telephony. I used to work for Nortel and Avaya, so I've seen the sort of telephony side of things. And it's that transition I saw over a decade of the digital security, the digital telephony with the PBX and the facilities team that tend to be the telephony people, did ad move changes and like configured your phone. And slowly but surely those people disappeared. And telephony became an application on their network. You had x86 servers and now the cloud. And all of those people are sort of either become IT people or retired or not doing telephony anymore. They're doing hopefully digital workplace. So I sort of see the similarities in this physical security world as people transition from analog camera systems to newer IP systems and then IP systems with analytics. It's becoming more and more like an IT decision where those original people still need access to it, but they're no longer the best place to make a decision about what to buy. So we really think about building an IT-centric sort of solution that appeals to their needs. So when we do that, it ends up looking a little bit like this. So I wanted to run through some of the things that are sort of less obvious about the camera, and then we're going to go focus on this cool new one in a second. So the whole idea is you don't move video anywhere unless you really have to, because it's very expensive. It's computationally expensive, bandwidth expensive. Video is just big and difficult to deal with, but it does make for exciting computer science problems, which we'll go on to. So try not to move the video unless you really need to. So unless someone requests it, the video is always recording to the camera continuously, and that's it. So the only thing we put in the cloud is the standard Meraki configuration information and a tiny bit more, some thumbnails and metadata associated with the analytics. And what that means is we can use a very small amount of data. It's always less than 50K, that's the design limit. Typically we see it's around 10 or less, depending on how much activity the camera sees. The lowest I've seen is around 2. What that means is you can very easily run cameras off LTE or cellular. So I have my entire parents' house, which is like a Meraki test facility, because they have like Bluetooth beacons in their cars, they have mesh, they have LTE, they have SD-WAN with MXs. They run 7 cameras off a 4G link in the middle of a national park. So it really is possible, and we're seeing more and more customers realize this flexibility allows them to go do things. Because one of the beauties of Meraki is that we're a hardware company with the insight into product usage, like a software company. So we know that like only about 1% of video is watched by customers and really needed. Like the rest of the time you want it in case something happens. Like you want that UPS in case you run out of power, but you're not using it most of the time. So with that in mind, we shouldn't move the video around unless we really need it. And to help you sort of put into context where we are today, Simon alluded to the sort of fast growth of the Meraki portfolio. We have, I think it's just over 4 petabytes of managed customer video right now. This is generated at a rate of about 2 million video files an hour. And we store more than 1 billion video files across our customer cameras. So this becomes quite like an interesting data management problem, which really works when you distribute it all. And then you use these like amazing Meraki technology. I almost feel like we cheated in a way because we took all the work that the networking teams have been doing, storing metadata and all that configuration information at massive scale, and we can now apply it to other problems in this space, such as video. So we can deal with this huge level of data and allow you to query it really, really fast in dashboard in a way that is just not typically possible to do. And then we have metadata for the analytics for like every component in the frame for every second, for every frame of every second of every minute of every piece of video. So it becomes really, really quite hard to sort of scale this out if you're not careful. So anyway, that's sort of where it is. And when you want video, we stream it to you in the most efficient way possible. So if you have an IP route from the camera, you'll stream video directly to your device. It will come from the camera to your browser, no client software required. No ActiveX, no Java, no Flash, no Shockwave, no hard fat clients or any of that stuff. Just a modern web browser and you're good to go. But what if you're remote? So I want to go look at my parents in the UK, or I'm in London, I want to look at San Francisco. It would suck if you loaded dashboard and it said, please open your VPN to connect to your camera. Although we would probably sell even more MXs, which would be good. So instead, what we do is we create a dynamic cloud proxy where the cloud acts as this service to bridge HTTPS connections from the camera to the client. So one of these things that I feel the whole industry has done a terrible job of in the physical security space is digital security. We look at like the Mirror botnet and these sort of distributed denial of service attacks from collections of IoT devices that have been hijacked. They've done a terrible job. And that's because the decision makers buying those technologies were not IT people. So what can we do to help our buyers, the IT people, the Cisco fans that want to buy a product that's better? Well, we just put security in a way which is like fundamentally part of how the product's going to work. So what that means is all the storage on the camera is encrypted. We use AS256-bit. When you first turn it on, it won't record for a couple of minutes because it's encrypting the entire volume. And then we store the keys in dashboard, so you can't lose them. If you then want to RMA that camera or give it away or do something else, those keys are destroyed and all the footage is useless to anyone who wants it. The second thing is we only stream via HTTPS. It's mandatory. You can't turn it off. And we have a unique certificate per camera from a global CA. So when the camera first starts, it goes to the cloud, and the cloud acquires a certificate from DigiCert for it. So if you're local and you do an inspection on the certificate chain for the camera, you'll find it has its own unique certificate, which we manage for you. So there is no browser warnings saying you've got mixed content, or self-signed certs, or having to manage your own CA.
Is this information available to the general public? These are all questions that my security folks have all asked me, and I've opened a case with Meraki. They said that's proprietary information. That stuff's hard to find.
No one should have said that's proprietary information, because this is like a great selling point that we have not done a good enough job at marketing.
Well, I don't just mean and I guess I mean something broader. So you're specifically talking about your security products. I mean as a whole. So my security people have asked about, how do we make sure that MXs aren't being imported from China? So trying to get that explanation, making that visible to not only the network people, but the security people, because they're vetting cloud now. So
we've done a really bad job at explaining the huge amount of work that actually sort of, in a way, sort of prevents some features being built on platform and overall security. So for example, this new generation of camera has Cisco's Act 2 module in. So this is the Trusted Anchor module. So this is hardware-backed security on it. And it also leverages Secure Boot. So it's drastically different from your average camera. Right. But we never tell anyone about that. And we need to do a much better job at doing that. And the camera's not the only one. If you look at the latest generations of other products, they all have hardware-backed security in as well. So those are things that we just feel like table stakes, but we also need to realize it's important to tell people. Okay, I'm being told to wrap up, and I really even haven't talked about the coolest stuff, which is the machine learning piece, so I'm really going to have to be very quick here. So the MV12 is the latest generation of camera that we have. I'm going to pass one around. It's very rare that you get to say you have a camera which is smaller, faster, yet also cheaper. And the ability to do that is all based off the mobile industry. So this runs a Qualcomm Snapdragon octa-core system on a chip with a dedicated GPU. And I talked about features, but we need to solve problems. What problem does that solve? This solves the problem of people wanting advanced analytics, such as machine learning-based computer vision, but they never, ever deploy in production because it's always very server intensive. They need all these servers, all these GPUs, NVIDIA is selling them all these great Tesla devices, but it's too costly. So in a way, I like to think of this as like the democratization of AI, because we do machine learning for the object detection, classification, and tracking of people in the camera with no servers and no video in the cloud. And as far as I'm aware, we're one of the first people to do this, because it's exceptionally hard to do it on such a small compute envelope, even when it is an octa-core. So that's really, really intriguing to me, because anyone, you can be a coffee shop with one camera, or you can be a national retailer with 100,000 cameras, can now leverage this. We are also able to add more storage, so you now get 256 gig of storage. Again, this benefit of the world of mobile telephony, more resolution, microphone, and so on, but now wireless. So why wireless? Well, one of the big things that we found was when customers were telling us about why they weren't going to buy NV, one of the big factors was replacing analog cabling systems was more expensive than the cameras. So they said, why don't you make a wireless one? The only problem was no one knew how to power it. So we then built this. This has a very snappy name of like MA-MV-PWR-something something. We call it iPatch, so that's iPatch. If you just put your thumb in the back and you just give it a wrench. This is a prototype of something that will, I'm going to show you here. There you go.
Oh, the other kind of wrench.
Yeah.
Oh.
What'd you do? What it allows you to do is you can completely upgrade an analog legacy system with just this device. It takes 12-volt DC or 20-volt AC, converts it to PoE, and then you can power your camera. The data plane then becomes wireless, no longer on coax. It also allows you to do super fun stuff. So we ran a camera on a sailing boat in San Francisco Bay using a solar panel. You can even power like APs with it. Anything that's PoE, 12-volt DC, 24-volt AC.
The wireless is in the camera, or the wireless is in the puck?
Wireless is in the camera.
Okay.
Power conversion's there.
Power conversion.
This really is about allowing people to take cameras and make them much more widely deployed. And one of the interesting things about making it wireless and providing analytics is you can now do all of these things like people counting, dwell time analysis, flow analysis, and you can just move it around, or you can put it there. So there's just been this huge interest from retail organizations that want to use this. But also, because we don't charge any extra for the analytics, it's just part of that one license, and it's one license for any camera, we're seeing education now get really interested. They want to know if someone was in the building at like 11 at night and then what they were doing. So this gives them insight into that type of thing. So the long-term vision is this idea of camera as a sensor, not just this video tool. When I'm training our new employees, I say, why do customers want cameras? They definitely want boxes, but why do they want the cameras? And it's the idea of like security and like protection from personal injury lawsuits and other stuff. But if you abstract all of it, it's this idea of information about your business, which allows you to make decisions. But the trouble is video is very big, very hard to deal with. And so if the camera can automate the analysis of that, we're in a whole new world where the camera can do all of these new things. And I'll finish with my favorite example, which is the Department of, I think, Primary Industry in Australia that has cameras for looking at sheep at this farm demoing IoT technology. And what's so interesting is the value is not video. They don't have a video camera to watch video. They have a video camera to look at the heat maps of where the sheep have been in the field during the day. So the value is derived from the analytics, not from the video, but that's where the source of the information is. And that really helped me sort of come to this idea that the camera being a sensor really is a wonderful long-term goal to shoot for. But I think I'll end it there.
Just as a recap, I think the session George did there is just an illustration of how the innovation of this organization is not at all interested in staying with the set of products that we already have here. This is an architecture that we can use and are using for other IT solutions. So when you think about digital workplace, that's really a good model for thinking about where Meraki is going and the journey that we're on as part of Cisco. we are staying with that simplicity message, as I said. Again, decisions being made all of the time, including by all of our product managers like George, around how to provide solutions to these problems based on looking at the challenges people are trying to resolve rather than on the technical excitement that we want to get into and the speeds and feeds that we necessarily want to try to replicate or not. This is a very important website here, community.meraki.com. Are you all on there? I really do want to make sure that everybody is on there. This is a good place for continual conversation. Meraki folks step in and out of this all the time from all different parts of our business. So there's a little bit of a luck of the draw in terms of who you'll get at any one specific time. But what we want to do over time is to make sure that this becomes a really good opportunity for you to provide feedback regularly, as well as that famous Make-A-Wish box that I'm guessing you guys will have pounded on thousands of times over the years, I'm going to guess. All right, so I think that wraps everything up from our side, from a presentation perspective. Any sort of last comments or thoughts before we finish?
How does, well, can you train your own models and send them up for the cameras? Your own machine learning models?
So you can't train your own models and put them on the camera. The cameras today use a pre-trained model that we've built, but in the sort of next couple of quarters, we're hoping to enable customers to submit training data so that we can then improve the model specific to their type of deployments. There's just a lot of challenges dealing with things like GDPR and the use of customer data, especially when it's got their customers in, that we have to sort of get fully fleshed out before we're able to offer that type of capability.
Okay.
One of the difficulties in offering the ability for you to deploy your own model is to optimize it to run on not a NVIDIA Tesla is really, really hard. We put a lot of time in, and we spoke to many organizations that have expertise in this area, and we're seeing this transition where more people are investing in embedded systems research for machine learning, but it's still genuinely pretty tricky. So our expectation is we're not going to see customer levels of competence to do this for at least 12 to 18 months. At that point, it'd be worth revisiting.
The reason I ask is there are products on the market now that compete with the technology, allow you to cloud control it, allow you to train your own models, and come in at a fraction of the cost.
Do you have a specific example?
Deep Lens.
Deep Lens. So we work with the Amazon team. We've developed for Deep Lens. The performance of that is much, much higher in terms of the base performance of the CPU than what we have in here. But we still struggle to make it perform for the same tasks as fast as we can make ours perform. Now, it really does depend on the development team's expertise on different platforms. But our understanding is that the Amazon camera is not a camera you're going to go out and buy at high scale and deploy in your retail environment. It's one where you work out how to use Amazon services on embedded devices.
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how other organizations pick up that concept.
So the reason I ask is sitting down, and I mean, I've been through many of your presentations, and it's always great messaging about where your product fits, who your target is, the 80-20 problem, all of that. In the real world, that's not the messaging that comes from the sales team. Talk to them, Meraki fits everywhere and solves every problem. So I want to make sure that I understand. I know that the camera is not going to fit for every customer. I want to make sure I understand where it is being targeted, because they will walk in and try to sell it to anyone that they can get a meeting with.
Okay. I think this is just a matter of sales education. It's a new product, and to be fair to our sales team, they've never sold cameras before. It's a little more of a stretch from wireless, which is networking based, to switching, which is also networking based, to MX, which is security networking.
Well, I wasn't targeting the cameras either specifically. It's the entire product portfolio.
I second that, just to not to pile on, but that's the experience.
Because I've loved Meraki since I was first introduced, pre-acquisition. I love everything Meraki does. It has a place in the market. It has a big place in the market, but it's not everywhere.
Yep.
So,
I think.
Yeah. So I hear you, and I think we could definitely make sure our sales teams do a better job at that, and they can always do better. I don't have like a specific solution for you now, and I want to make sure we use the last couple of minutes to like go through any other questions. But I do hear you.
What I'm trying to get at with the camera is what is your target for that? What's your target customer, your ideal customer for that?
It's like organizations that are distributed where the IT team are responsible, because it makes their lives much easier. And they don't have to have specialists to go look at it.
Because the analytics portion, it almost feels like an organization that's ready to go into video analytics is going to have a much larger footprint than you would typically want to target Meraki at. So I'm trying to...
It's that architecture thing. Like, it's not necessarily that they have 1,000 cameras, it's that they probably have 10 cameras at like 100 sites. That's the type of thing, rather than like one office building that has 1,000 cameras in, which is probably less ideally suited for it, because then the management overhead and the things we simplify become drastically easier for those IT people operating it.
So it's dipping the toes in the water kind of thing.